They arrive full of confidence, phones in hand, cameras ready, and the certainty that the world is waiting to be dazzled by their charm. Americans abroad carry themselves like walking tour guides, eager to demonstrate their version of global knowledge, only to discover that reality has other plans. Welcome back to my channel. If you're new here, please subscribe, like my video, and turn on notifications so you don't miss our next update. It starts with the obvious stuff. They order coffee, expecting the barista to marvel at their pronunciation of macchiato. They mispronounce it anyway. They wave at locals in the street, expecting a cheerful wave back. Silence. They joke about the weather or compliment the architecture. Blank stares. And yet, they persist, blissfully unaware that what they see as friendly enthusiasm often reads as chaotic cluelessness to anyone with even a passing sense of cultural nuance. Then come the tourist spots. Americans photograph every conceivable angle of famous landmarks, unaware that locals have seen these sights daily and could not care less. They shout questions at guides, attempt jokes, or narrate their experience out loud for the benefit of anyone who might be listening. The result? A combination of confusion, polite avoidance, and, occasionally, subtle snickering from bystanders. The Americans leave convinced they have been charming, while the rest of the world quietly wonders how they manage to function with such overconfidence. Social media, of course, amplifies this effect. They film every meal, every street performance, every mildly interesting statue, narrating it as though history itself pauses to appreciate their commentary. Friends and followers are treated to detailed accounts of experiences that are mundane at best and cringe-worthy at worst. They post proudly, thinking they are informing the world, when the world is mostly scrolling past, chuckling quietly at the spectacle of unabashed self-importance. Restaurants and cafes provide another stage. They order the most complicated menu items, mispronounce them spectacularly, and loudly request modifications no sane kitchen could possibly accommodate. The staff comply politely, with the faintest sigh hidden behind professionalism. Meanwhile, other diners exchange looks of subtle disbelief. To Americans, this is customer empowerment. To everyone else, it's a performance in self-inflicted chaos. Then there's the etiquette problem. Queue jumping, loud phone conversations, obliviousness to personal space. These behaviors, perfectly normal in their home bubble, read abroad like a guidebook for how not to be subtle. They approach strangers, expecting instant rapport, only to be met with polite indifference or gentle avoidance. Every attempt at friendliness that doesn't land becomes a little blow to their self-perception, yet they rarely notice. They genuinely think the world is failing to appreciate them. At airports, the spectacle reaches its peak. They hustle through terminals, filming every announcement, every duty-free display, narrating it with breathless excitement, oblivious that everyone around them is either silently judging or expertly ignoring. They consult maps upside down, ask multiple staff the same question, and loudly celebrate finally finding their gate. And all the while, the international crowd quietly files past, bemused by the energy, yet not entirely surprised. Even the simplest gestures, smiling, waving, attempting local slang, can backfire spectacularly. Americans abroad think effort equals charm. In truth, it often equals confusion. A friendly cheers in the pub becomes an awkward pause. Attempting sarcasm falls flat. A casual joke about politics or football produces either blank stares or quiet side-eye. And yet, they soldier on, convinced of their social brilliance. And yet, there is something strangely endearing in this. Their confidence is unshakable. Their enthusiasm is limitless. They may look foolish, they may seem clueless, but they try. And occasionally, by some miracle of circumstance, a local responds with genuine laughter, a clever retort, or a nod of appreciation. To the American, this moment is monumental, like winning the lottery in human connection. It rarely happens, but when it does, it's celebrated internally like a personal victory against the odds of global judgment. Then come the extreme cases, loud selfies in solemn museums, narrating history like a stand-up routine. Americans attempting to imitate accents, failing spectacularly, and thinking they've nailed it. They tell stories at inappropriate times, oblivious to social cues, while the locals around them subtly inch away. They cheer too loudly at sporting events, confuse rules, and gesture wildly, all under the sincere belief that their passion is inspiring. On public transport, they ask strangers questions with an over-eager optimism that is almost painful to witness. The response is almost always polite silence, or, at best, a muttered, They exit at their stop, slightly bewildered, but convinced they've left an impression. At dinner tables abroad, they insist on explaining American customs to people who have lived twice as long and seen twice as much. They are shocked when the audience responds with polite nods instead of enthusiastic agreement. and yet it's impossible to entirely dislike them. Their confidence is relentless, their optimism unshakable. Americans abroad provide a constant source of entertainment, inadvertent or otherwise. They teach the world patience, tolerance, and the quiet joy of observing someone blissfully unaware of how they're perceived. Every mispronounced word, awkward gesture, and loud commentary is a reminder of the delightful unpredictability of human behavior. By the end of the day, the lesson is clear. Americans may not realize how ridiculous they sometimes look, but that's part of their charm. To the rest of the world, they may seem loud, clueless, or socially tone-deaf, but they are also unrelentingly human, endlessly entertaining, and occasionally unexpectedly insightful. And perhaps that's the point. The world might be laughing at them, but it's also watching with fascination, waiting to see what they'll do next. Part 2 begins where the chaos gets even more extraordinary. Americans abroad continue to navigate the world with the kind of confidence usually reserved for superheroes, blissfully unaware of how absurd they appear. They attempt casual interactions in cafes, striking up conversations with strangers mid-sip. They comment on accents, offer unsolicited opinions on local history, and smile so wide it practically vibrates. The locals respond with polite nods, half smiles, and the occasional eyebrow raise, subtle cues that say, without words, "We're letting this slide, but only barely." Then there's the airport spectacle, where it reaches a new level of dramatic comedy. They rush past signs, narrate everything into their cameras, and ask staff the same question 3 times, all while loudly celebrating minor victories like finding their gate or spotting their flight number. Passengers nearby glance over, trying not to laugh, while the Americans remain completely convinced they are the centerpiece of international travel. Sports events, of course, are a particular minefield. Americans cheer with unrestrained enthusiasm, misunderstanding rules, waving flags incorrectly, and shouting commentary like they're commentating a World Cup final. The locals watch in quiet horror, occasionally smirking at the sheer spectacle. A mispronounced player name, or over-the-top cheer, produces moments of polite silence, followed by the subtle, unmistakable side-eye, an art form perfected over centuries. On the streets, the misadventures continue. Americans try accents they haven't mastered, misinterpret cultural cues, and narrate their experiences to imaginary audiences. They point at landmarks, describe them dramatically, and occasionally mislabel them entirely. Locals overhear, suppress laughter, and move along, leaving the American to believe they've given a perfect mini-tour of history. Even in social gatherings, their attempts at friendliness can misfire spectacularly. They talk over conversations, misread sarcasm, and insist on explaining customs with passionate authority, only to receive minimal acknowledgement. Yet they persist, convinced their enthusiasm is infectious. Occasionally, a local's dry humor lands perfectly. An understated quip, a clever pun, a subtle sarcastic remark, and the American bursts into delighted laughter, convinced they've made a lifelong friend. By the end of these encounters, the lesson becomes clear. Americans abroad may appear clueless, overzealous, and socially oblivious, but there's a certain charm in their relentless optimism. Their dramatic missteps, awkward gestures, and unfiltered enthusiasm are exactly what make them fascinating to watch. The world might roll its eyes, chuckle quietly, or give polite indifference, but somewhere in that mix of chaos and confidence, there is genuine entertainment, humanity, and occasionally, a moment of true connection. And that, perhaps, is the ultimate irony. While Americans may not realize how ridiculous they look, their sheer audacity ensures they are never truly ignored. Even in the face of polite indifference, blank stares, or subtle side-eyes, they remain the most entertaining tourists, the unintentional comedians, and the unforgettable protagonists of life abroad.